It's true. No, I agree. And I said at the moment when I bubbled in my little bubble for Biden, I made a very conscious choice that I'm going to spend the next 4 years fighting him as much as I possibly can. And
Good.
I am very committed to saying that I will never support Kamala Harris for president of this country. So, and I say that
because that's
like I will spend the next.
You know that's where they're going. They're going to go Kamala in 2024.
Yeah.
And then get ready, everyone. They're going to do Pete Buttigieg in 2028.
Yeah.
See, what the progressives don't realize is the DNC is always 10 steps ahead of us.
Yeah.
Because they've built this. The DNC has built this machine over the last century.
Yeah.
The reason they have so much power is because they have built, you know, these institutions and the establishment over the last 100 years.
I think whatever happens, I mean, and this is something like I am very committed to primarying in 2024.
Yeah.
I think that we need to look at this next 4 years as we need to really gear up and quite honestly, you know, if that's within the party or if that's without the party, but we need to make a very strong commitment to the next 4 years to get something better in 24. And that's so I agree that there's definitely going to be a very huge sect of the party that's just going to put their heads back in the sand and they're not going to care. But there are a certain amount of people like me that by no means see this as, okay, this fixes things. This is just hitting the pause button in a way. And I said from the beginning, at a minimum, I know that Biden will get us back into the Paris Climate Agreement. And that to me is, and look, they're not going to stop taking fossil fuel money. I know that.
No,
but
they already removed that very sneakily from the platform at the DNC. They just literally took it out of the platform and fossil fuel subsidies.
I know. And I will, and again, it is like a personal mission for me that I will spend like every day of the next 4 years reminding everybody of this and fighting to get somebody else in 24. Yeah. So, I mean, I understand that this is a horrid situation. And like I said, I felt in 16, I am very content with my Green vote. The Greens really kind of pissed me off this year. I don't feel for them. And I've always said that the Republicans are infinitely more Democratic than the Democrats. The Republicans don't have super delegates.
They don't.
No, the Republicans didn't want Trump, but that's who the people wanted. And that's who they put up because they actually are more Democratic within their machine than the Democrats.
I'm glad you said that. And here's one thing that, and thank you for saying that for the next 4 years, you're going to work to build progressive power because that is what we have to do. Now, I believe it has to be a two-tiered strategy. You know, I support down ballot progressives. I supported your campaign. I endorsed your campaign. I endorsed 35 down ballot progressives this cycle in the primary who ran against corporate Democrats. And you ran a fantastic campaign, Jen. And you brought moral clarity to your district. You went out and campaigned for things like Medicare for all and a Green New Deal and basically, educated your district that like you guys deserve a government that is on your side. You deserve to live with dignity. You deserve you deserve not to continue to go to lose everything every time the market crashes. Yeah. Because we have a recession on average every 6.5 years now. Since 1929, there's literally a recession every 6.5 years on average. We've had 14 since the Great Depression. And this kind of failed trickle-down economics and these boom-bust cycles that capitalism keeps us in, the ruling class is able to extract as much wealth as possible, right? And then when the market crashes, that hurts the poor and the working class more than anyone else. So they have to actually build everything all over again. So what it come to find out, working people can't even build real wealth under this, this basically blind capitalist system that we're living in. So we have to continue, like you did, to primary these corporate Democrats. But I also believe that that's not enough. We can't just fight to change the system within. The progressive movement also has to build power outside of the corporate parties so we can challenge them. I think it's important for people to know that the reason FDR, which is the biggest signature piece of progressive legislation that this nation has pretty much ever seen, that gave power to working people and held these corporate interests accountable. The reason FDR passed the New Deal wasn't because of the Democrat Party. It was because we had a strong socialist party and we had a strong communist party, if you can believe that, people out there listening. We had stronger parties. Those parties are basically gone now because corporate power has destroyed them. But that's the point, is when there were other parties, the Socialist Party pressured FDR. They don't get credit, right? Because the ruling class and the corporate parties write history because they're the dominant parties. But the reason we had a New Deal is because the socialists and communists pressured FDR. We need that same kind of working class pressure pushing these corporate parties from the outside. That is why I am voting green in this cycle at the top of the ticket, why I'm voting down ballot progressives for the rest of my ticket. And the thing with the Green Party for me is, although I'm supporting them at the top of the ticket in this cycle, they've had about 30 plus years to try to break the duopoly.
Yes.
And they haven't had much success doing it.
And so, you know what? Let's look at that. We could look at why.
And because, look, politics is I'm in politics to give. For me, politics isn't about winning for your corporate team like the red and the blue teams think. It's about winning power for the people, and I'm in politics to win power for the people and to make their lives better. But unfortunately, politics is about messaging and branding as well. And the messaging and branding from the Green Party hasn't been strong enough to break through these two corporate parties. And the other part is, when you go up against these corporate parties, to win, you have to be able to build a multiracial, multi-generational, working class coalition, very much like the coalition Bernie put together in 2016 and then again in 2020 that almost did it, right? That almost broke through. Now, the reason, so I'm helping the movement for a People's Party. I know, we had a big convention a month and a half ago, and we had our keynote speakers were Nina Turner and Cornel West. We had people like Chris Hedges, and I was one of the speakers, and we had Tim Black was one of the speakers.
I watched it very enthusiastically. I was very pleased. It was sort of like a party with all my favorite people. I think and I agree 100%. Actually, before you came on, one of the things I said is that this needs to be done from multiple fronts. This isn't something that is one or the other. Exactly. I completely wholeheartedly support third parties. I think that I'd be happy if we actually had two. Yeah, we don't have a Labor Party. And that's really what this comes down to.
And that's we do not have one. We have two corporate parties who both represent Wall Street. And if we're ever going to fight back against all of this injustice and inequality in our country, you can't have two parties that both represent Wall Street. One party has to represent the people, has to represent labor. And you're absolutely right. That, to me, is the real problem in America, that the people with the most money have the most representation in our government, and the people with the least amount of money have no representation in our government. Let's be honest. Yeah. And so that is the idea behind the movement for a People's Party, to build a real working class labor party that real democracies in the world have. Go to Europe, look in every political system in Europe. Our Democratic Party, quote unquote Democratic Party in America, is the right party in all of the European countries. So all of the quote unquote Republicans in Europe, they support a universal healthcare system. They support Medicare for all. They support socialized medicine. So our Democrats are more to the right than the right parties in Europe. Yeah. America is a right-wing nation. You can just clearly argue that we don't have a left party in America. We have two right-wing parties. And yes, the Republicans are further to the right, but the Democratic Party is not a left party.
Yeah, I reject that.
We have a few left members like AOC and Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib.
But are they really left?
They're not. I don't know. No, they're not as left as I am. So they're not like true socialists.
No. Well, Bernie's not a socialist, and he never should have said as such. And had he said from the beginning that he was a social democrat and he never said that, then it wouldn't have been able to be used against him when he is in fact not a socialist. Yeah. If he were, then you own it, but he's not, and it never has been.